Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unconnoisseur channel. My name is Matt,
And I'm Drew.
and we are together again. Just the two of us. We are missing some co-hosts, and we thankfully, the Phil Rice family got home safe, and man, what a pleasure it was having them co-host with us on the episodes. But it's just you and I again tonight, Drew.
Just the two of us. That's all I
That's
thought
right.
about when you said that. It is. Back
It
to a
is.
rhythm, and it will be odd not having Dad and Phil on the screens. We'll probably be better off getting Dad back on at
Yeah.
some point after your move is done, and
Mhm.
it'll be easier that way than
Right.
trying to Google up or Skype up or whatever we use to get Phil on the phone in Romania. So,
Right. Right.
Phil, we miss you.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. The nuggets that you brought every week were gold.
They were banging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were.
He was a cool
So
cat to have on.
he was a cool cat, wasn't he?
By episode 10, he was jiving with us pretty well, and I think he touched on that at the end of the episode last week, the working together. So I just finished that episode up. It'll be coming out on Wednesday, but he'll talk a little bit about that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
man, it would have been a great episode to have him on. And we saw some photos last week of him playing the saxophone on stage with you on the trumpet and me on the piano.
Mhm.
That had to have been in like 1985, 86, or
Probably even earlier than that. I'm thinking the 84 or 83.
okay, that's
So,
true. It may have been.
yeah. Yeah.
But with his sax experience, episode 33 or number 68 in the countdown this week
Yeah.
would have been a great episode for him to be with us on. This week, we're covering Mr. John Handy. This was recorded live at Monterey Jazz Festival in 1965. The album came out in 1966. So we're going to talk today a little bit about John Handy, recorded live at Monterey Jazz Fest.
And that is the name of the album,
Yes.
recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival. So, because you said it so
I,
flippantly, like, okay, yeah, this is recorded live. Yeah, but that's the name of the album. I'm just, for those of you who are joining us for your very first episode, thanks for joining us. We're unconnoisseurs. We are not professionals. We don't do this for a living. We're doing it for fun. We're using the Jazzwise magazine top 100 albums that shook the world from the 2022 publication of Jazzwise. So it's just a conversation between brothers here about this awesome music. So
yep.
yeah, John Handy recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Let's you talked about dropping in a clip at this point.
I
You drop
did.
in a clip?
Let's
All
do
right,
that.
cool.
I wanted to hear first of all in our clip this week, the first song. Now there are two tracks. Let's clarify that first. When you go to find this on your channels, and Matt'll give you a shout out where that can be in the slideshow. I use iTunes. You use iTunes. I
I
use
use it.
YouTube Music, and on YouTube it was two songs for this particular album. If you find it digitally remastered, there is a third song on the track. This particular album, I was using the two songs. The first song is If Anyone Knew, which was 27 minutes
If
long.
only we knew. If only we knew.
I'm sorry, If Only We Knew.
That's
And
right.
then Spanish Lady was at 19 minutes long, and that would have been the second track on the album. Uh, so yes, I wanted to hear. There's a section at about 14 minutes and 40 seconds in where the whole band plays. That's what I want to roll.
That's 1440 right there.
What I want to
Okay.
point out is when this live concert took place, John Handy was on the alto sax, Mike White on violin, Jerry Hahn on guitar, Don Thompson on bass, and Terry Clarke was on drums on this particular one. It really shook the world at that particular time because you're using, first of all, a violin. Second, we're going to talk more about that album a little bit, but ooh, what a good clip. What a great
that
clip.
was a great clip.
I was about to get all excited about it anyways.
I'm still excited about it.
Oh man. And that's why I think Phil would have enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Coming in with Indo Jazz and going throughout Astigmatic and so many other great albums, it stretched his boundaries on what jazz could be. And then this is another stretch. However, with that saxophone in there mixed with the violin, I was just thinking about those pictures. He was a sax player and a violin player in his earlier years. So,
right.
Let's do the slideshow.
All right. You ready for the slideshow? All right, here we go. All right, here we go. First slide. Again, whatever you do, do it to jazz. It's so funny because we're in the middle of a move or packing the house and everything else. And we're in the garage on Saturday morning, and Kendra walks out and she's like, "Hey, you don't have any music on. We're doing something. So we're doing it to jazz." And I'm like, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So I quite readily put on some jazz, and we got to work Saturday morning packing up some stuff. But yep, whatever you do, do it to jazz. And today we are talking about John Handy live at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Slide number 2. I always love talking about the artwork. I think this album cover is so cool. I love the way that they separate what do you call that?
Stacks. Yeah.
The stacking of the photos.
Like a triptych, but it's not the same picture. They're just stacked on there.
Yeah, it's just cool looking art in the first place. I mean, so anyways, that's just the album cover. I just like talking about the artwork, the album art. It always interests me how they put that kind of stuff together. Next slide. I got a couple of pictures of John. The top black and white picture. He looks very young, even in his older age. He looks young, and man, he looks like he's, I don't know, 38 or 40 in that picture, but I'm sure that he's much, much older. And then the lower picture, I found a piece of art. Somebody did a piece of art on him. I just found it. It's really cool. I love the take on him and the sax. So really cool piece of art.
I've appreciated these little art pieces that you bring in too. It's nice just to see something other than a standard photo.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Jazz lingo for the day. So this album is kind of listed as fusion anyways, the one that we're going to talk about. So I've picked the word fusion today, fusion jazz. Fusion is a style developed in the late 60s, okay, but we're talking about this album, which was 65 and recorded in 65. So it's not necessarily the late, but this is the mid 60s by Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, Chick Corea, and others, partly as a reaction to the eclipse of jazz on the music scene by rock. Now, think about the 60s and who was around playing rock and roll in the 60s. You're talking about the Beatles. You're talking about Aerosmith. You're talking about, name another one. Elvis. When did Elvis die?
50s.
50s. Well, okay.
Yeah. He was but you're right. So many of these Rolling Stones.
Yeah, the Stones
were out. Now I'm drawing a blank of all of them because I can think of them, but I just can't tell you what they are right now.
I'm the same. I'm sorry, but yeah, the eclipse by rock music kind of put a damper on jazz, and so let me keep reading the lingo. Incorporated elements of rock into jazz and made greater use of repetition and non-improvised passages. Now, there's a lot of repetition in the album that we're going to talk about today, and some of the clip that we've already played, you heard a little bit of that repetition, but when you put these tracks in your ear, you're going to notice the repetition for this style of fusion. Harmonic language was simplified. Now, I highlighted this because I found it important. Key feeling tended to be established by repetition. rather than harmonic movement. Now, the feeling of the music was established by the repetition. So the musician would just get in a groove, and he would just repeat it over and over, and then the violin comes in and he does something else repetitive on top of the sax player or the drummer or whatever. So the straight 8 time and strong backbeat predominated. So that repetition for fusion. Now, he wasn't John Handy wasn't listed as one of the creators of fusion, like Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, and Miles Davis, but man, he sure laid it down for sure, the fusion.
Yes.
So, all right, let's move on to the next slide. And you touched on it just a little bit, but this week's album can be found on YouTube, iTunes, YouTube Music, which is different than YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the CD I found was out of print, so you can't find it on CD new anymore. But if you're going through, Mega Replay or your local, home disc store or whatever, you might be able to find a copy.
It's interesting because an album like this might just be sitting on your dollar rack at most places. Yes, it shook the world, and yes, it's number 78. But do people really understand what this is that they have in their hands?
Right.
I think about that all the time. So,
YouTube,
it's a 47-minute long video. So, Dad, yes, both songs are combined. If you find it on YouTube Music, it's actually an album. So there'll be 2 songs.
Well, and then also on the 2009 release of The Essential John Handy, they play the first 2 songs on the Essential album too. I mean, basically they're playing recorded live at Monterey Jazz Festival on the Essential album. So if you listen to the Essential album, now the Essential album is 3 hours and 33 minutes long because it's got,
everything that was essential.
Yeah, for sure. But tracks 1 and 2 of that album are the tracks that we're going to be talking about today. So let's move on to the next slide. And this will be the information slide. John was born in 1933 and he's still alive today, which makes him 91 years old. I always do that math ahead of time because I am not good at quick math. The influences that I found for him, Charles Mingus, he played a lot with Mingus, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Coltrane was another influence. And then Pony Poindexter was another sax player that really influenced John Handy. John has 18 studio albums and 9 as a sideman. So he's got a decent collection of music to listen to. I mean, Art Tatum last week had 89 CDs or 89 albums. So not quite as much as Art Tatum and Ben Webster, but man, still 27, discs or hours of music to listen to is nothing to shake a stick at.
No.
Genre that's listed is jazz and jazz fusion, which is why I picked the fusion term this week for the lingo. Okay, let's move on to the known for. He played with Mingus a lot, and his solo in Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. Goodbye Hat. People are still talking about his solo in Mingus's Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. It's just it's unbelievable. And we haven't covered Mingus yet. He's coming up much later in the discussion, several months from now. We'll be talking about Mingus probably, but I actually did go ahead and listen to Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, which, wow. But Handy solo, is kind of still being written about today.
It is. And it's interesting because I was just reading an article, and I'll put the link to the article below. But John Handy in 5 songs was the article. And
I had that one pulled up too.
And it was Goodbye Pork Pie Hat with Mingus in 1959, Spanish Lady, which would have been on this album, Tales of Ole Miss, which was on New View in 1967, Ganesha's Jubilee Dance, which was on Karuna Supreme in 76, and then Hard Work, the solo on that on Hard Work album from 76. And I think that I listened to Mingus today just to hear Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. And you can really, it's him. you will not go, who's playing sax on this? You get that feel from him. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it is 5 songs to know about John Handy, and I thought that was just so cool.
I did too. Yep. And I have it right here in my notes as well. So, and that article was actually written in 2017. So it's,
Okay.
yes, it's not current, but it's within the last decade. So, but man, people are still writing about Handy and his work. So I just think it's super
It's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. He is a multi-instrumentalist, plays the alto, the tenor, and the bari sax. He also plays the clarinet, oboe, and he does vocals. Now, I didn't branch out this week and listen to any of his vocal work, but man, the dude can just wail on the sax. I don't know. The next little snippet, Alumni Hall of Fame from San Francisco State in 2006. San Francisco State is the college that he used to teach at. And of course, the Alumni Hall of Fame is nothing to shake a stick at. He got the Lifetime Achievement Award in 1995 from San Jose Jazz Society. These are just, I'm just touching on some of the many awards that John has won. So I just picked a couple to highlight. They're not really listed on his wiki page per se. But he does have his own website, and that's where I got most of this information from his awards and stuff. So if you want to check out the awards that he's won, some of the work that he's done, head over to the website, www.johnhandy.com. Now, I went a little different way with 6 degrees this week. We could have connected just with 1 degree, but I wanted to explore this just a little bit. So for my 6 degrees, I got John Handy. He played with Mel Marin in a group called Bebop and Beyond. Bebop and Beyond actually did a tribute to Dizzy Gillespie, which Dizzy himself played in. Okay. So you got John Handy, Mel Marin, played with Dizzy, and then Dizzy with Miles. So 2 to 3 degrees of separation from Miles Davis. We could have just connected them. We could have skipped 2 of them and just put in who?
Yeah. We could have put in Charles Mingus.
Yeah.
And with the albums that he played on, John Handy and Mingus, I don't know if you've got the slide on that, but Jazz Portraits, Blues and Roots, Mingus Dynasty, Mingus and right now Workshop. Yeah. I'm sure there's something I missed, but he played a lot with Mingus and Mingus with Miles, and played with Miles from 1946 to 1953. So Mingus and Miles have a lot of history together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I wanted to highlight a different avenue than I thought you would take anyways. And Mel Marin, played with them in Bebop and Beyond. So I just thought it was cool. That's all. Next slide. Let's roll to the next slide. Today in jazz history. When this video comes out, it will be September the 4th. On this day in jazz history, Miles Davis Nonette opened in Royal Roost in 1948. I failed to research anything about Royal Roost, but I'm sure it's a jazz club. I just don't know where it's at. So I apologize for the ignorance there. Do you know where it's at?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, cool. Next snippet there. Sax player Dave Liebman was born in 1946. Doesn't mean anything to me. I just put it on the slide. So sorry, that's what happened in jazz history today. A quote from John Handy, though. I found this, and I absolutely love this quote. Never try to be better than someone else. Always learn from others and never cease trying to be the best you could be. It sounds like the Army. Man, be all you can be.
What an important quote, and I'm glad you had that up there. It is, be all you can be. I'm going to be thinking about that now. I was going to go all deep with that quote. But you were like, Sorry. In the Army now. Can't get rich, but dig in a ditch. Be the best you can be. Never try to be better than somebody else. And I think about Miles Davis, since we just talked about that. How many hours is it going to take to play like you? A lot more than 10,000. And as you begin to play like you realize that along the way you've picked up everybody else's sound. You had to learn. And what I was thinking about is the Herbie Hancock that's been filtering around TikTok. I played the wrong chord, and Miles looked at me, and I thought I was fired that night. And then in his next phrasing, he used those notes. And so if you're always learning, never cease to try to be better at who you are, what you're doing, and don't compete with others. They've put in their time, you put in yours.
Right.
So what a cool quote.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's a slideshow. Thanks for letting me do that.
Yeah, boy. I wanted to talk about 1965.
Yeah.
In 1965, this album was recorded. That means here in just a couple of weeks, September 13th of 1965, live at Monterey, this is the album. So 59 years ago, this album came out. Well, in 1960, it'd be 66 when it's released, but in 1965, there were people in the audience just enjoying this particular album for the first time. Also in 1965, this year in music happened, Miles Davis recorded ESP. Nat King Cole dies. Maiden Voyage by Herbie Hancock gets recorded. And we know how much we love Freddie Hubbard, so big deal. And then John Coltrane records Ascension, and I'm sure that we're going to get to that album at some point in time because it's John Coltrane.
Yeah.
This year, outside of jazz, 1965 that is, it was the first spacewalk. Sound of Music receives an Oscar for Best Picture. Go figure. Sound of Music. Sound of Jazz music, baby. And also in 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated. So it was a big year in music, a big year in the world around us in 1965. So that's my year, 1965.
So let me talk about the Monterey Jazz Fest for just a minute, because also in 65, the Louis Armstrong All-Stars played at the Monterey Jazz Fest. The Duke Ellington Orchestra played. The Dizzy Gillespie Quintet with Mary Stallings played. The John Handy Quintet, obviously, because this is the one we're talking about. Clarke Terry played. Earl, Fatha, Hines played that year at the Monterey Jazz Fest. Buddy Rich, Anita O'Day, and Mary Lou Williams played at the Monterey Jazz Fest that year as well. So I'm thinking back to my experience at Elkhart Jazz Fest, and the venues were going on, and you could, pick your time where you were going to go see these people. And without knowing this album, I'm not sure I'd pick John Handy to go see without knowing, because we're unconnoisseurs, right? Which is what I was at Elkhart. I'm still an unconnoisseur, even though I went to a jazz festival. That doesn't make me a pro, but I had to pick and choose who I wanted to go see. So, man, if I'd have missed John Handy that year, I probably would have been pretty upset.
But think about the names you just rambled off. Would I have been upset to see any one of them? It's weird because I think about ACL Fest here. There were years that, I picked these bands and they're on two separate sides of the grounds. And it's not a short walk on ACL. And when it's 95 degrees out and there's beer tents everywhere, it gets to be a hard walk. Well, when you start thinking about all of the other small booths that you pass along the way, I used to just look at the names on it and go, oh, that's a funny name. I'll go see Arctic Monkey play. Why did you go listen to them? Because they had a funny name. That may be the only reason. So I don't know. What would it have been like to have missed the John Handy because you were at Duke or at Diz or checking out Clarke Terry, CT.
Right. Oh, man.
I'd have been sitting with CT.
Yes, row. We would have been. I know. So I'm, again, just relating it to my own experience, having to pick and choose who you're going to go see. But, man, I'm glad we got this. I'm glad we got the gold at the end of the rainbow because I'm telling you, let's do this. Let's throw in the other clip right now.
Yes.
And we're going to do the clip of
this is the clip that I wanted to hear from Spanish Lady. This is going to be about 5 minutes before the end of the song. And this particular one, when this comes in, I wanted to actually hear just the saxophone going. And it's a really chill piece. Probably not an atypical solo for him, but that's what I wanted to hear.
Ready?
So I'm going to roll that clip.
All right, cool. You said with 5 minutes left. Oh, that is gorgeous. That is so gorgeous. Okay. All right. It's going to move me to tears.
Yeah, that'll move you to tears.
Yeah, I'm almost in
When you
dang
think
tears.
about what does jazz mean and that feeling, you feel it. They talk about pops, how you can hear his soul coming through the horn. You can hear John Handy coming through right there. Imagine that. I'm on a set, live recording. I know that we're doing a live recording because the Columbia years before, actually it was 2 years before, they started recording these. They were the first major label to start actually recording the jazz festivals. So you're pouring it out for the audience. You're pouring it out for the record label, knowing that that's going to come out later. You're now 45 minutes into your set, an hour, almost probably an hour into it, and that comes rolling out of your sax.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and I'm picturing the venue. It's in Monterey, California, so the weather's great. You're maybe sitting on a rolling hillside, on a blanket, sipping some wine, or chilling, or whatever else you're doing in 65. I don't know, whatever you're doing, but yeah, I'm picturing the whole venue in my head. I've never been to Monterey, never been to California, in fact, but just what a cool scene it would be. And you're sitting there, and this is hitting you in the face, like, bam. Now, on the notes that I took, I put wow in all capital letters. It reminds me of the Doors on jazz.
Yep.
It reminds me of the Doors. For some reason, I don't know. It doesn't have the I don't know. It just reminds me of something I think the Doors would do.
Well, it's interesting because I remember this conversation last year because when we first went over the album, and it reminded me of that. Now, I got to be honest, I probably listened to the album 8 times this week again. And my score would have been different because you truly understand what you got. I was reminded, and I put it in my note, a couple of years prior to listening to this, I had gone to an Indian festival with my old neighbors. And it was like an 8-hour song, but it was 8 hours of dancing. And we got there at like 9 o'clock at night. The festival was going to be going until sunrise. And the band was playing one song, but it was one of those 8-hour trance type songs. And I think about the dancing that took place and the organization of the dancers that took place. But you get in, you like it or not, you're going to fall into a trance. You're going to want to dance. And it's 65, so you're probably passing around some illegal substances. And then this trance or house music comes in. And I was thinking about the Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead.
Sure.
Those were the names that I put. But you're so on with the Doors. It really was kind of a funkadelic tsunami of sound.
Ooh, I like that.
Just constantly hits you.
Yes.
And later this year in 1965, John Handy's quintet was the first to actually make it to, I need to pull this up real quick. They were the first jazz group to play at San Francisco's legendary psychic ballroom, the Fillmore Auditorium. That was in December, just a few months after this concert. That was a big deal. So imagine being at the psychedelic ballroom of the Fillmore. It kind of explains this album. And I'm going to take this time just to remind us, this album was recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival in 1965. It is number 68 on the countdown. And the members in this particular band, John Handy on alto sax, Mike White on the violin,
the electric violin.
Electric violin.
Yeah. Yep.
Jerry Hahn on guitar, Don Thompson on bass, and Terry Clarke was on the drums. Was this week the electric violin, or was that last week's during art? Oh, it would have had to have been this week. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
ELVN,
That's right.
ELVN, electric violin.
So let me ask you, because this album, it stuck right here on the 1999 list. It was 67. On the 2006 list, it was 68. And then on this year, 2022, it was 68. Had this album been in the top 100 or in the top 10, the first 10 that we listened to, how do you think you'd have rated it? And we haven't given our scores yet, but we will here in just a minute. But do you think you would have enjoyed it as much, or did you need to digest some of the other jazz that we've listened to so far for someone? I guess it's a long way around. Would you recommend a first-time jazz listener?
Yes, I would recommend a first-time jazz listener. And I want to change my statements of the past weeks and months. We would always hem and haw around. Would you go to this as an album? As Phil learned, no matter what, this top 100 jazz albums is a must listen to, because you're going to gain the appreciation of what's coming. Indo Jazz Suite, let's just take that for a moment and then interject this electric violin this week's. Yes, I think it was crucial that it fell. It's interesting that it stayed at the 67, 68 range, which means it is of a high priority album to know. Would it have hit me as hard at 100 or at 99? Probably not. But we were also jumping into a journey that we had no idea where we were going and what we were doing. And here we are now on YouTube trying to guide people to listen to jazz music. I mean, ideally, we've got no business telling you guys what to listen to, but that's why we're using the magazine.
Right.
What we don't know. And still, as we record this, almost a year after listening to this album for the first time, we're going to guide you. Yeah, you're going to join us on our journey as we get lost in some great jazz music. Would I appreciate it? Probably not as much as I did now at number 68.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this. Did it shake your world?
It shook my world. And I think it did for this fact. The violin that pops in, you're not thinking about that as a jazz instrument. Up until now, you've touched some strings and orchestra and third string stuff, but this just really shook me up. And the fact that John Handy can play an alto sax like he does really did shake me up. And I think personally, it's an album that I will go back to. It's tough for a 20-minute song, but it's a 45-minute, 50-minute commute to and from school every morning. So I have a dedicated 45 minutes to listen to this.
Well, here's the thing. To me, it didn't seem like it was that long. It seemed like once it got started and you're processing it and you're thinking, I just get lost in jazz, and that's why it's not hard for me to drive and listen to jazz, but I will get lost in the music and, pass my turn or whatever, because I'm thinking about the music so hard, but it doesn't seem like that long.
No.
And you tell Dad, man, you got to listen to 48 minutes of music. And he's like, one song, 48 minutes? No way. But it goes, it's not.
When it's finished, you want to hit replay.
Yes.
More, please. Just give me more. And
Yep.
I think that's it. So did it shake you?
It did. It shook me up, and actually ready to score this thing. I'm ready to rate it. I think for me, and again, we are not trying to criticize anyone's work. We are just giving our own personal rating of how we enjoyed the album. This is not being critical. We are unconnoisseurs. We are not professionals. So here's my rating, and I'm happy with my rating this week. 8.5 is what I gave John Handy, and recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival. 8.5, which means, like you, I will not feel bad about putting this album on again in a month, again in 4 months, 6 months, next year, or whenever I'm looking at my notes. Oh, hey, that's an 8.5. I better put that one back on because it's important to me. So that's what I gave it.
And Matt, I gave it an 8.5 that week as well. We were looking at that just before we hit record so that we had that information in front of us. Solid 8.5. And you're right. It's a great number. It doesn't rock it at the 10. There are albums that will make us feel that. And they'll be coming up. Again, it's 68 albums. I'm sorry, not at 68 albums, but I can't
32.
32 albums in. Imagine if this album is that great, what's coming next? We still have 67 other albums unknown today to us. And when you start thinking an 8.5, that should be enough to remind you this is a great album. My question to you would be is, why should someone listen to this particular album? New or new jazz fan or a longtime jazz listener?
I'll tell you why. This is the gold at the end of the rainbow. Anytime I get a chance to listen to a live recording, those musicians have to be spot on for that performance. You can't make, I mean, you can, they do, but you're not going to make many mistakes recording a live performance. And so that musician has to be spot on the whole performance. Now, you listen to a studio album, and don't get me wrong, I love listening to studio albums, but you know in your mind, oh, that sax solo could have been overdubbed. They could have been laying the tracks down, and he's working on a solo over here. With a live performance, you just can't do that. And so what you put out is what you get. And this one stands far above most of the live albums that I've had the enjoyment of listening to. And I love it. I really do. I really do. I'm sorry to say that I didn't put it in my ears much this week, but when I did, I was in love. I fell back in love with it.
Well, I hit a bunch of other albums from John as well. You know, with 19 of them, you can almost go through all of those in a couple of weeks. But one that I kept getting stuck on was actually not his album, but it was the Mingus. If I'm saying that right.
Yep.
But what a great album. And the sounds from John Handy was what I was paying attention to that. It doesn't hurt that he's got so much other great music. The one that I actually listened to, I guess this was last night, Musical Dreamland from 1996.
1996.
A little bit different sound. 30 years later, 40 years later. But the fact that he's still out there, John Handy, thanks for shaking our world and dropping this album. Because, like Matt said, I will go back to it. And it has to be spot on. And it was spot on in 1965.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, I can't say enough good about it. And, it's the way that I feel when I listen to it makes me feel good. It does. It makes me feel good when I listen to it. I know we did the facts section. Now we're doing the feeling section. I don't care. It made me feel good when I listen to it. And I hope it makes our listeners feel good. So, yep. So, all right. Hey, any last thoughts on John Handy?
Go listen to John Handy. I never did last year or this get into many of the other names that were on there. It's interesting that Jerry Hahn as the guitarist, why not dig into that? So that'll be future weeks, I'm sure.
Terry Clarke.
Terry Clarke. Yes. Not drums, CT, this is TC. Terry Clarke on drums. How come we haven't heard that?
Right.
We hear like Art Blakey and Max Roach. All these other names are out there, but Terry Clarke. So I'll have to do some digging, and y'all will too. We didn't get into much of our personal week, so with the minutes remaining, anything big happen?
Yeah, I got to go see Gaelic Storm in my hometown. So that was a huge night for us, and the weather was perfect. It was nice and cool. The band was awesome, and the High Kings came out and did their set, and then they did about 30 minutes together, which was it's just fantastic. Now, we're Gaelic Storm fans. This was only the second time we heard the High Kings, but we like them. They're good. They're not Gaelic Storm. We didn't like them as much as we like Gaelic Storm, but man, we sure did like them. And then when they played together, it was really cool. So that was
Good.
Live music is it's always the best. Maybe that's why I was talking about John Handy being live. What about you?
It's kind of the same. We're starting the second week of school, so we wrapped up first week of school. Yeah. It's going to be a great week. I have a confession to make. Thursday, I was exhausted. I've started riding again in this high heat at 80 degrees at 5 a.m., reaching 105, feels like 112 this week. I was exhausted and finished up work late at the bike shop. I didn't get to go hear Spencer Foster's concert at Monk's. So I'm a little devastated by that. I know that the album is out or will be out. So as soon as I get my hands on one, I'll send it out to you. But Spencer Foster stuff, dude, I was just broken when I realized that I couldn't get there in time.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm so sorry.
It broke my heart. So I missed my live music, but Monk's Jazz is here, so I'll be checking more out. So
before, one final question I have for you about John Handy, but let me ask you a question. And this word has been going through my head most of the week this week, and I don't know why, but do you think John Handy is obscure? Do you think if you're in a jazz scene and you walk up to somebody in a conversation and say, "Hey, by the way, have you ever heard of John Handy?" Do you think they'd recognize the name? Because obviously he's not Coltrane, he's not Parker, he's not Miles, he's not Wayne Shorter.
We had that comment months and months ago from somebody about a lot of obscure albums, and I have to be reminded that the 100 jazz albums that shook the world from Jazzwise. This was John's and his editing team's look at a broader range of albums. They weren't the most popular. They weren't the highest sold. But why was John Handy's album on the list? And it comes back to who he had been playing with for the years leading up to this. This was his first chance to showcase his talents on his own after leaving Charles Mingus.
Okay.
Only 19 albums from him, give or take. But I think that what I wanted to address, is it obscure? Yeah. People don't know his name.
And I think they should. I really do.
Like Tubby Hayes.
Yes.
People need to know who these names are. And in this particular case, John Handy should be a household sax player's name.
Agreed. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about next week's artist coming up.
Oh boy.
Is that an obscure name? Not to you and I, because we walked on the grounds where he recorded.
It is no. In the jazz world, no. I can't imagine that this would be an obscure name.
True.
Period. If we came off of Art Tatum last week, and we talked about his ability to play the stride piano, and that was your term. And by the way, what a killer reporter we had coming from Toledo, Ohio.
Wasn't that cool?
That was so cool to see the statue that day. But we come from Art Tatum, and if you talk about where jazz came from, there were only so many names from the very beginning. And do you want to introduce it? Do you want me to tell?
I do. I got it right here. I'm ready. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Next week, number 67 on the list. Jelly Roll Morton, Birth of the Hot, the classic Chicago Red Hot Peppers 1926 to 27. It was released on the RCA Bluebird label on CD. So this consists of tracks that were recorded both in 1926 and 1927. I was just, I don't really need to read any of the names. There's not many that I recognize.
Nope.
Baby Dobbs maybe, and Johnny Dodds, but yep. Jelly Roll, of course, is a piano player, and you saw him on our episode 2 or 3 weeks ago when we went to Jeanette. You saw his Walk of Fame statue. Let's see, where else? I think you have one of the pictures in the slideshow of
yes.
Jelly Roll.
I'm going to link right above Matt's head to the Jeanette episode and the interview then that we did with Bob Jacobson, which was a past president of the Jeanette Star Foundation in Richmond, Indiana. Yeah. When you go back to the cradle of recorded jazz, as the painting, the mural in town said, the cradle. Oh man, we're going back to Richmond with Jelly Roll.
Back to Richmond, yes, we are.
With the cradle of recorded jazz, when it came to the music, when it came to the ragtime, the Dixie, when it came to stride piano, this is where it began. So I think that this is a household name. Jelly Roll Morton was actually a Creole from New Orleans, and his history is peppered with intrigue, to say the least.
That's a great word. That's a great word.
But Jelly Roll as a pianist and as an individual has some rich history. And so this is the classic Chicago Red Hot Peppers. And just like we learned from Bix, the recording may not be banging. It may not be the current technology that you expect for sound, because it was 1926 and 1927. However, this compilation of 15 sides, or actually, what was that, about 7.5 records, with roughly about 2.5 minutes, three minutes, and we're going to cut you off at Jeanette. So yeah, this is going to be an exciting week in music.
Sure is. I'm looking forward to putting it back in my ears, actually.
You know, I'm not looking at my rating from last year. I ought to look at that right quick to ask this question. Why haven't I put this back in my ears?
Yeah.
You know, we talk about those higher rated numbers, and the historic, you just saw it too, didn't you?
Yeah, you better be careful.
I better be careful. Some of those numbers may not reflect our true
well, again,
you can see what we rated it at the website.
That's right. Go to the website, check out our ratings. What we don't know, we don't know. And again, we're 33 weeks into a journey, right? Yep. 33. Next week would have been 33. We're 32 weeks into a journey, 33 weeks next week. So again, what you don't know until you learn. But you have to tune in next week to find out our scores and hear the conversation on Jelly Roll Morton.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us this week. Hopefully you have enjoyed the conversation that we've had on John Handy, live at Monterey from 1965. You can find us on the web at theunconnoisseur.com. Email us, theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. Matt's banging it out on TikTok. I'll have some YouTube shorts coming out shortly. And then don't forget also, you can find us on your favorite streaming platform for podcasts. We'll see you next week as we get into Jelly Roll Morton. Cheers.